Grantlee, we might start with you, if you don't mind. Barry, we've got a lot to go through, but you were born and raised in Brisbane?
I was born in Ballarat, but I grew up in Brisbane, and at the age of 17 I was very lucky, right place, right time. I was very lucky to get a job at the newspaper, the Brisbane Telegraph, the old afternoon paper here, which the old afternoon Brisbane Telegraph, which no longer exists, but it was a very big paper for a long time. And because I'd done a little bit of boxing training, I was very interested in boxing. They gave me the job as the boxing writer, and wow, what an era to start in. The days of Reds Lake and Festival Hall. And one of the first big fights I covered would have been the great Steve Axel over here. He was the star of Festival Hall in those days, and fighters like Tony Mundine came along to fight there, and Frank Ropus, Brian Jansen, all those guys. So it was a great era to start in. And after a couple of years I went down to Sydney. I got offered a job in Sydney, which was in those days we regarded as the big smoke for journalists on a big newspaper. And once again, I was just very lucky and very blessed in my life. I got there. Newspapers and the media is very different these days. It's very hard to get into, and there's not that many jobs going. But in those days, they used to love big feature articles, and if you're a sports writer, you could really write a lot about characters and their lives and whatever. Now there's a lot of bitterness, and just about every story is someone having a feud with someone. But it wasn't like back in those days. And they asked me, what would you like to cover? And I said, I remember this distinctly. I was only a young guy. They said, what would you like to cover? And I said, well, it's a big fight that's happening in Melbourne. I'd like to go down there. And it was Barry Michael fighting Claude Noel. So I went down and covered that, which is very unusual for a Sydney paper, someone from there to go and cover interstate things, but that just became my life for about the next 40 years. I wrote lots of other things too. I covered lots of other things, but boxing was always my passion as far as journalism.
That's incredible.
I lost that one.
Yeah, you put up a very great performance.
15-round bloody split.
Yeah,
we've got a little bit to say about that one, Baz, don't worry. 2019 was when after you moved back here. You moved back here in 2006. And of course, things really kicked on for you back in your hometown, back here. And of course, you won numerous awards. You've won 3 Queensland Media Awards in 2010, 2012,
just like the right place, right time, I guess. As far as boxing went, when I was 20 years old, I did a little bit of boxing training at the Newtown Police Youth Club, where the part-time coach there was a guy called Johnny Lewis. He was a sign writer, he was a battling sign writer for the local council. He lived in the council flats, but he had a team of amateur kids, and I had aspirations to be a professional boxer. Johnny trained me for a little while, but I was like a bull at a gate. I wanted to start straight away, and Johnny said, look, I've got kids that have been training here for 2 years, and they haven't had a fight yet. You either knuckle down and train every day, or I don't want to train you. So my fight didn't happen, but Johnny really liked, I guess he liked me as a person, and he essentially made me his right-hand man for all these amateur fighters. And the star of the show of amateur boxers in those days was the New South Wales flyweight champion, a guy called Jeff Fennick. And we were, because of Jeff and of course Johnny's training, Jeff became one of our greats, won 3 world championships. So it just became like a rocket ride to the moon for me as far as boxing. And I was in the corner for all these great fighters. Along came Jeff Harding. He wanted to start training with Johnny. He was a good amateur from Grafton. Johnny trained him up to become world light heavyweight champion. Went over and he beat Dennis Andres, and the promoter of that fight was a very shifty real estate entrepreneur called Donald Trump. He was the promoter of the fight.
I'm not surprised.
So I was just very blessed. I got to meet all these people, Trump and Donald King and all these sorts of people, and all because of Jeff and Johnny Lewis. And I had another great mentor who sadly passed away recently, Ray Weekly, who was so great to me and helped me so much. And I just feel honoured, and thank you very much for inviting me here today. Just feel honoured, and I'm glad to say thank you to everyone in boxing for giving me such opportunities. I covered lots of Barry's fights, Lester Ellis and whatever, and people the younger generation who may not have seen Barry fight, probably, there's a few contenders, but Barry's probably the toughest boxer ever in Australia. Never offers people more than 60 fights, and I used to say that back then. He was just awesome, and I knew his dad quite well. His dad, Len, who was his lifelong trainer, and they were a fantastic team. And the excitement that Barry brought to boxing in Australia was just phenomenal. Against Les Trellis and all those guys were phenomenal.
Just tell me a little bit, out of the 22 books that you've written so far, 3 of them are about Australian boxing. One, of course, when Jeff Fennick, with his illustrious career. The other one, of course, was the Hornet, which was actually very, very good with Jeff Horner, who's with us here today. It was 2008 and 2019. And the other one is Australian Boxing Illustrated, which I have a copy of here, and I'm going to get a couple of people to sign while we're here. That was a huge success.
Yeah, well, I love writing all of them. The first one was the Illustrated History, and that's 40 years ago I wrote that book. Part of the reason was that I'd met so many, through Johnny Lewis especially, I'd met so many of the old timers, guys going back to the 40s and 30s. I met Fred Henneberry, who was the star of Australian boxing in the 1930s during the Great Depression. I met George Brackle, one of our greatest, really exciting fighters, Vic Patrick and Tommy Burns. And these guys, when I was a kid interested in boxing, these guys were like almost mythical characters. And to find out that they were actually flesh and blood and that you could interview them and tell their stories to new generations, it really excited me. As I was saying, I've just been so blessed. I met, in the early 1980s, I met Max Schmeling, who, if people don't know Max Schmeling, he was world heavyweight champion in the 1930s, once knocked out Joe Louis and was knocked out by Joe Louis in return. But it's just fascinating. He was a very reluctant hero, symbol of the Nazis, because he was German. Hitler put him on a pedestal. He was this great symbol of Aryan pride and masculinity, which he hated. He actually had a Jewish manager in America. He hated that. But to meet this guy 50 years after his fights with Joe Louis were known around the world at Yankee Stadium, to shake the hand of this man that was such a great figure in sporting history. As I say, I've just been so lucky and so blessed. Thanks very much to the sport of boxing for giving me those opportunities.
The sport of boxing always was very kind to you as well. You won 2 Australian Sports Commission Awards, which is no mean feat.
Yeah, well,
because you're the best in the country.
Twice. Thank you very much.
I know you're a humble man, right? But I'm genuinely saying, how many people get to win an Australian Sports Commission Award? And you won 2. Yeah,
well, as I say, boxing was very, very kind to me, and I met great people through boxing. So many great people and had so many great opportunities. I even went up to Palm Island, and one of those award-winning stories was about Noby Clay, who was a very good amateur boxer from up there, and from a wonderful team up there with the trainer Dennis. As I say, been so many great places, so many great opportunities. Even I was in the corner for Lovemore when he fought Canelo Alvarez. Still regarded as the best boxer in the world today. I was just fortunate to meet all those guys, De La Hoya and all those.
You were also runner-up to the very prestigious Walkley Awards in 2011. And then in 2017, you won Australian Sports Writer of the Year for the News Corporation.
Yeah, that's right.
News Corporation that you were employed by. That again, I would imagine would be extremely difficult to get.
Well, I was proud because in my mind, boxing doesn't always get the credit or the attention that it deserves. It often gets. I always, when I was covering boxing, at the beauty of the sport, the skill of the sport, and because I had some experience, of course, being in the corner for guys like Jeff and Lovemore and Aussie Joe Buckner, I just knew how hard and how grueling it was to be involved in just what risks boxers took. So I was so proud to be able to tell those stories and shine a light on just what fighters go through to reach the top. And it's not even to reach the top. I mean, it's something Vic Patrick once told me. He said, even if you're just a prelim boy, or even just put on a glove to go sparring, he says it takes a lot of courage to put on a glove. And that's sort of been my mentor when I'm covered boxing.
Absolutely does, I can tell you. You were in the corner when Jeff was coaching you up here for Bantamweight title, I think it was, at the State Sports Centre in 1983. That would have been an absolute thrill.
So 85, and I was in the corner for all these world titles. Jeff could be a very volatile character, so we actually parted ways after a while, and I know speakings for a long time, but we're good today, like you said. I owe Jeff so much in my life, and I respected him because he was such a great fighter, and he was like my naughty cousin. You know, we were almost bonded by blood, and I didn't have always approved of some of the things that he did.
We first met, you and I.
Let me say, he was always wary of this man over here, Barry Michael. They never got to fight, but
it wasn't because of Larry, I think.
That's right, Jeff, despite all the hype, he knew his limitations, and he knew what hard fights would be, and
it was very well
played. Lester and Barry Michael always did. He was very cautious about it.
Grantlee, we first met in April 1987 when Jeff Fenner came down to Melbourne and fought a young guy by the name of Tony Miller.
Yeah.
And Tony Miller was a real rough, tough, kind of guy. Jeff had him down in the first round from memory, and Tony stuck him there and dug his heels in and lost the decision. That's when we first met. And of course, after that, Jeff and Johnny Lewis and of course Bill Morty, who was a promoter at the time then, they came down to Melbourne and they packed out the Melbourne Tennis Centre. I was there for most of those fights, but I was just a kid. When I say I was a kid, I was just a hanger-on. I went with Lionel. I was never going to grab the whole line. I was never going to let that go because everywhere he went, I went, and I got a free ticket to go in, and I got to meet the great Johnny Lewis. I got to meet the great Jeff and get photos and autographs and stuff like that. And that's where I met Grantlee. And then of course, the Bill Morty promotional team came down. They fought Tyrone Downs, which was a good fight, and Georgie Go-Go Navarro, remember that one? Marcos Villasano, which was a tough fight. He won all these. Mario Martinez was also another difficult fight, and I think Martinez dropped Jeff in the 11th round. And of course, the last one was Miguel Francia. And you were in the corner for all of those, and I often see you down there and say, I've got to ask you this question, right? This is a question that you know nothing about, but back in the day, every time I saw you were a lot fitter, a lot healthier, a lot trimmer. I'm not saying that you're not today, don't get me wrong, but there was a tracksuit. Tell me about the tracksuit. It was red and white, and it was a great looking tracksuit. Red.
Yeah, I've still got it. It doesn't fit anymore, but
really?
Reebok gave us loads and loads of gears in those days. It was like open sleigh. Jeff used to pull it, but his car, he always had big hot cars. Jeff used to always pull the car up to the loading dock at Reebok and load up. I don't
Not a lot of it was given though, was it?
I don't know if Reebok were actually aware of how much it was taking, but a lot of that gear made it to my wardrobe, thank goodness. Yeah, I wish it still fitted, but they were crazy days. But as I say, some of the great fights I covered were involved in Barry Michael. I mean, him and Lester Ellis, one of the great Australian fights of all time, and I was lucky to cover that, and many other big fights too. The one up in Darwin, I remember covering that.
Yeah, Ginsik Choi. Ginsik Park.
He had the kamikaze style, I remember, up in Darwin. Yeah.
Harry's still chasing the check.
I never got paid.
We'll talk about that, Baz. It's one of my things I like. So after seeing you a lot then, and we got to know each other, we sort of lost contact then. I was living in Melbourne, you were in Brisbane, of course, and I moved to Melbourne, up to Brisbane here in 1990. We first met up in Auckland.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun up there, didn't we?
Yeah, and we actually, we really did help the New Zealand economy with our shopping.
Well, I made a lot of, as you did, a lot of trips to New Zealand, courtesy of Jeff Horn sitting over here, the great Jeff Horn. And, you know, I say this, and I'm not exaggerating, despite all the fact that I was in the corner for all these great fighters, probably my proudest and most pleasing moments in boxing were involved with Jeff Horn. I met him when he was a shy school teacher at a state school, a relief teacher in southwest of Brisbane, and I went out there to do a story on him, and I thought, yeah, he's a nice bloke, that's an interesting story. A fighter that's a school teacher, and I was just blessed to be able to track his career all the way through, and you know, I'm probably one of the few people who actually tipped him to beat Manny Pacquiao. Me and my friend Ray Wickley, we did a thing for Fight News the day before, and I said, I've been over to Manila to see Pacquiao train, and I've seen the way that Jeff Horn was training. I said, if he brings that game into this, there's going to be a big upset. As great as Manny Pacquiao was that day, Jeff Horn was even greater. And you know, I couldn't have been prouder. I was virtually the eyes and ears for Jeff's granddad sitting at ringside. I couldn't have been prouder to see this wonderful kid, Jeff Horn, being one of the all-time absolute boxing greats. Manny Pacquiao before more than 50,000 people at Suncorp Stadium. It's one of the great days. one of the great days in Australian history to see that happen. It's just extraordinary.
I was actually also very fortunate when I picked up the telephone, probably, 5 years ago now, I picked up the telephone and it's you.
Okay.
And he said, hey, how are you? I said, oh, good, great, what are you doing? It's not enough, I'm here with Jeff. I said, oh, right. And he said, we're just watching a tape of Jeff's very first fight ever.
That's right.
I said, oh, right. I said, and he said, you know who the referee was? I said, he said, you.
That's right.
And so I was very fortunate. For me, it's a pivotal moment in my career that I actually refereed the very first fight of Jeff Horn. I think it was at Acacia Ridge Hotel. Was it Jeff, wasn't it? And then, of course, I never saw Jeff again, not even knowing that the first time I went to New Zealand a number of times and refereed Joseph Parker. Prior to him, I refereed against the great Francois Botha when he fought Mike Tyson. I refereed him against quite a few American imports and working up to into the world ratings. And that's where we caught up a lot. Grantlee, your story, we could go on forever. Just to let you know some of the many personalities that you've worked with and met, Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Max Schnelling, Floyd Patterson, amazing, I love Floyd Patterson, Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson, Frank Bruno, of course you're in the opposite corner of Frank Bruno, Mike Weaver, Ernie Shavers, Joey Gianello, of course, not forgetting the Australians, the great the great Jimmy Brothers, our second world bantamweight champion in the world, right? And Fred Hanbury, as you mentioned earlier, the great Bobby Sin, what a great Aboriginal fighter Bobby was. George Palm, wonderful man, one of the first guys I met when I moved to Queensland. And of course, who remember Vic Cowell, who Jimmy knocked out in 54 seconds over in South Africa. Grantlee, the story, obviously, we need 3 hours, but I still don't think we can get it. We're really grateful that you came along here tonight, this afternoon, I should say. You are royalty when it comes to your job, what you've done over the years. You're now retired. But, I also forgot to mention that I'd like to know about it, the Harry Gordon Award for Sports Journalist of the Year.
Oh yeah, well, once again that was covering Jeff Horton's epic rise to beating Manny Pacquiao. That was a Australian Sports Journalist of the Year. So, you know, those are so very lucky. It's like Johnny Lewis used to always say he got lots of accolades for training. I'm only as good as the people I train, and honestly, I was only as good as the people I wrote about, and I was very lucky to write about so many great ones. All the way, as I say, in the new book Knockout, it talks about Jai Opataia. I mean, I still don't think he's getting the credit in Australia that he deserves. To be greatest that way with a broken jaw, and then to win that last fight. I mean, he's one of our greatest.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for staying there with us anyway tonight. I know they're serving some food, so I'm going to have a very quick chat with Barry while we're here, because his story is absolutely amazing, and I'm quite sure that it will really capture your attention. Born in Watford in the United Kingdom, you immigrated to Australia. That was part of your journey. You were 2.5 years old in Australia in 1988.
That's correct, and we actually lived since my dad was in the Lancaster Bombers. He did 29 Australian journey in the World Cup in Bombers. When they fought a tour with 30 trips, and there was a 1 in 3 chance of surviving the tour. He did 29 trips till the war was over, and he migrated to Australia. His skipper, a doctor called Johnny Reimer, was the actual the head pilot of the Lancaster Bombers, and he sponsored us to Hamilton in the Western District of Victoria. So we lived in Hamilton for a couple of years before we moved to Glenbervie briefly, which is where the Bombers supporter, but I'm now at Collingwood supporter. Anyway, I gave the Bombers away because of the
I think Andy Maguire had a little bit to do with that.
Andy Maguire convinced me. And then we moved to Williamstown in the western suburbs, which was a really rough suburb before the Westgate Bridge, and we lived in the commission flat there, and that's where I started boxing basically.
You know, when you say commission flats, this is something that resonates with a lot of people. You know, our sport here, we're here to recognise most of the people in this sport. Most of the people in this sport are here to achieve. Some achieve greatness, some achieve a little bit of notoriety, others achieve one of the main things that many was, and that was to put food on the table for their families. And that's what the sport of professional boxing brought to those people. So we never ever came, very few boxers that I know ever came from a wonderful household where they didn't have to work or they didn't have to do. I'm quite sure if I asked Steve Axel and start, Benny Pike and many of the other guys that are here, boxes here today, even Jeff and myself, we all started from humble beginnings, Alan or Paul or the whole rest of this fraternity. They all started at the very, very bottom and you worked your way up. You had your first professional fight in 1973 at Festival Hall in Melbourne. You won a 3-round decision over Magic. That was a long time ago, Barry.
It certainly was. I fought him twice. I fought him about the 5th time, about 30 years ago. I was in Newport and someone knocked on the front door and opened the door. I had no idea what it was. I didn't think we'd play. Just locked it out.
Incredible.
Just to say hello.
And that's what the sport of boxing does. You can punch the living shit out of each other in a fight, can't you? And then you're mates forever.
Lester and I are great mates now. Actually, Lester and I were going to get on the speaking to a better. We've done a Europe. He's really well accepted. And Frankie Rhodes and I are big great mates too.
Didn't talk for a number of years after the Ash Wednesday fight.
Didn't speak for about 10 years, I think. But Frank and I are great mates now. That night that Frank Rhodes was Ash Wednesday, it was 55 degrees under the ring lights. It was calendar.
The Melbourne Town Hall.
I'm not going to die.
I'll never forget that, the Melbourne Town Hall. Barry, you've been fortunate. You fought in Coonabarra Brand, Mount Pritchard in New South Wales, Gosford, Horton Pavilion in Sydney, Orange, and also in Sydney. You fought at the Port Melbourne wonderful. You fought at the Dallas Brooks Hall, the Melbourne Town Hall. You fought up here in Brisbane, and you fought in Darwin as well. And overseas, you've been fortunate enough to fight in Honolulu and Surabaya. You fought in Cebu, Georgetown in the area. Yep, Jakarta, of course, yeah. Merthyr Tydfil. Tell me where Merthyr Tydfil is.
Merthyr Tydfil was in Wales, and I was trained. I went to Wales.
Oh, wife knows it, yes, she does.
I was looked after by a great man called Eddie Thomas, who was Commonwealth champion. He was actually #1 with Sugar Ray Robinson, the fight for the world title. His hands, he had ligament damage to his hand, which I had actually at the time. I took my foot, I met him, I went down and trained with him. He said, yeah, you're a very good fighter, I'll get you a fight. I went back up to my cousin's place in Aylesbury. I was having a few drinks. The phone rang.
I can't believe that. You had a few drinks.
Anyway, it's Eddie Thomas who goes, I've got a fight for you. I said, when is it? He goes, 5 days. So I went down and
Nothing like a great preparation.
I fought the world champion in Merthyr Tydfil and beat him on points, and they rated me #2 in Europe. He was a great man. He actually left his family Christmas 1978. I fought on Boxing Day, 26th of December in Georgetown, Guyana, against Lennox Blackwood. One of only 2 fights in my whole career where I never finished. I wasn't knocked down, I was getting beaten, and I went there with one hand. I had torn ligaments in the right hand. Eddie Thomas told me not to take it. He threw the towel in the 7th round. I was effing filthy on him. He wasn't going to knock me out. He hadn't knocked me down. He said, you're a brave fool, you'll live to fight another day. And I respect that man so much for leaving his family, Christmas, to go to the Georgetown, and would not take a cent off the ground. He was a great man.
Barry, in your career, 60 fights, 48 wins, 15 by knockout, but people say that you weren't a puncher, but to have 48 wins and 60 fights, that's an amazing record, but 15 knockouts, most of your knockouts were just for sheer work.
I was never a super bomber, but I didn't have the leverage like the lesser others had to the head, but I had the physical strength more than anyone, or most of the people, and my body punching was, my forte, to be honest. I, used to, anyone I scored, and I did tell the girls that the sport, after 10 rounds or 12 rounds, or whatever it was, the best man at winning was just wild. Which a lot of blokes do after sport.
Title fights, 24 title fights in your career, 18 wins, just 4 losses and 2 draws. You fought 15 rounds. Now, can you remember that? 15 rounds. 45 minutes of fighting. I think Paul Moore, you fought 15 rounds a couple of times, didn't you? Now, we fight now 12 rounds, and I think when I became the national president, I actually reduced the Australian title from 12 rounds down to 10. And it wasn't a popular decision with most of the punters, but it actually ensured the health and welfare and safety of the fighters. We had much better fights for that by fighting over 10 rounds. So 24 wins, 24 title fights, 18 wins, which is really quite good. He boxed a total of 503 rounds, 41.25% KO ratio, in a career that was spanning 14 years from 1923 through to 1997. And let me tell you this, that Barry fought the last 15-round title fight in the history of professional boxing here in Australia. Now, that's quite something amazing, because that was in May 1986, and the third defence of your, second defence of your IBF World Super Featherweight title, and that was against Mark Landers in Melbourne Festival Hall before you went to fight Naji Daho in the UK.
No, I'm not Fernandez.
Yeah, it was a 15-round fight. So I'm asking if for that, you know. So, in the fight, let me just go back. Let's wind the clock back a little bit. The fight with Lester Ellis, there was a build-up to that. Of course, in your 55th professional fight was after that, which was that was Graham Gordon. That was my cousin Gordon.
Yes.
But prior to that, you fought on Ash Wednesday. Now, I don't know if you can remember Ash Wednesday. I was living in Melbourne. Victoria was burning. It was burning. You looked up to the sky, all you could see was red. You could see flames, you could see timbers, you could see everything. But what was burning and what was hot, what was red hot also, was the insides of the Melbourne Town Hall and Harry Michael Ford, the great Frank Ropus. That was an absolute war. It was a real toing and throwing fight. It wasn't a clear winner until later on the fight when you stopped Frank. No, when it's Frank.
Saturday, like through the town, the 11th round. But Frank and I sparred about 4 times. He was the welterweight champ in Australia, I was the lightweight champ. And we sparred about 3 or 4 times in the gym. And every time, he was one of those guys like Lester. Every time we sparred, he wanted to kill you. So every gym spar was a war. And one day we sparred and he hit me with an uppercut and put the bone on the head guard through my chin. I think 6 stitches. The night before, February 16, 1983 on Ash Wednesday, he hit me with the uppercut again and opened up my letterbox, 14 stitches under here. The teeth came right through here. He had a great uppercut. Look, he was an absolute animal, Frank. I kept, because I used to talk to all my opponents, you know, I'd psych them out and I'd hit him in the body and I'd hit him with a really good body shot. He'd go, ugh, and I'd go, that hurt you, didn't it, Frank? And he'd go, and just keep throwing punches up. He was an absolute beast. And, you know, it was the end of the 10th round. I nailed him with a left hook, bombarded him. He fell into the ropes, otherwise he would have gone down the rope save. And I knew the fight was over. I got back to the corner and the corner was going mental, saying the fight's over. And I just knew Frank, they would send him out. I thought they'd send him out. Anyway, he got up and we came to the centre ring, and I said, just in case he comes out, tip the ice bucket over me. So they tipped the ice bucket over me. And we came to the centre ring and I looked at him, he could barely stand up. And Johnny Huntington, the referee, put his hand on Frank's chest and pushed him, he nearly fell over. Anyway, the bell rang, and I can still see it today, like yesterday, the white towel flying in through the ring, and Frank was covered up until the fight was stopped. But we're great mates now, and that was physically, I think, the hardest fight of my life.
I've got 2 other fights that I really like to talk about. I know we're going to be beaten by the time both you and I are going to be TKO, but your 44th fight was something absolutely out of this world. Probably to a lot of people here you won't know about it. We'll back with Lachlan with the at the Dulles Brooks Hall in September 1981. You fought a guy who was a guy that had red flags written all over him, do not fight. His name was Al Earthquake Carter. Al Earthquake Carter is an absolute monster.
You know, he beat Aaron.
Did he really? Okay. Well, this is something that there's a couple of things here that when the fight was off, I want to know a little bit about it, because Al Earthquake Carter came to Australia with his record was 23 professional fights, 22 wins, 22 by knockout.
No one ever hit me as hard. No one ever hit me as hard. Round 8, I was in Disneyland, but even round 1, the first overhand right, he hit me. He really had incredible power. And yeah, unfortunately we end up supposedly his career was never the same after we fought. It was a brutal 10 rounder, and he was passing blow after
It was genuinely a career shortening fight that possibly as well.
Years later, in 1987, David Wolf, who was the manager of Boomboom Mancini, the winner was supposed to get a shot at the world lightweight title. I think I was number 2 in the WBC lightweight rankings at the time. And David Wolf approached me at the IBF convention in Norfolk, Virginia, and he said to me, Barry, you've got to shake your hand. He said, I've got to tell you, when you work harder, he said, when you beat him, he said, there's no way no one will get a fight for the 6 on Boomboom. Part of the votes in the Lions and Ohio. He said to me, we didn't fancy Boomboom with Carter. He said, when you beat him, we weren't going to give you a shot, and neither was anyone else. So it sort of stuck me for years. To be honest with you, the day I die, I'm indebted to Lester Ellis for giving me the shot at his world title, the weight I hadn't made for 10 years, 58.95. And I thank the late Dana Goodson, who I'd actually bought from Hawaii, because he saw me struggle to make 63 and a half in Hawaii for a fight. It was a piss of me over there. But he told us there was no way known I could make the weight. He did the dirty on me. He trained me for the fight. He was in Lester's corner.
That's amazing.
I remember I came down the barrel where you were losing weight.
Yes, I was there in a man in Barrel.
And Aussie Joe came down.
Aussie Joe was there, turned up a big Rolls Royce. And I played pool with him, I couldn't play pool.
That was amazing.
Guys, time's going to beat us, but we've got to now, after you when the fight, how did the fight come around with Lester? Because you were mates, you sparred off in the same cousin, you sparred him many times, and you fought there. The difference was that you were, at some times you were a junior welterweight, right, which is 63.5 kilos. What's that, 10 stone in the old language, and that was amazing. But then, and it might not sound a lot, but when you challenged Lester, you were challenging him for 58.96, a super featherweight title. It's 9 stone 4 or 130 pounds. Junior lightweight in our time period, right? Junior lightweight. That's what it was back then. All the experts were said, mate, you've got boxing, you've had too much to drink, you can't make that weight.
My dad even said that. He said, son, I think you should retire, you hit the head too much. He said, you can't make it. I did it scientifically. I had my fat content weight underwater. I went to a dietitian. I'd never done it before. And the guy, they told me that as long as I was on 1,000 calories a day, which is stuff all for 8 weeks. Once a week, I used to have a bottle of wine, what I wanted to eat, and a bit of sex.
Now look, you've been very fortunate over the time, you fought all around the world, as I just mentioned here, but coming down to officials, it's quite amazing that so many things have just come out today. I was talking, we've never mentioned, but we've got the Vice President of the Australian Boxing Hall of Fame here with us today, Damien Membry. Damien, where are you? Put your hands up, Damien. And he's come up from Melbourne today with Charmaine, and Charmaine is the Australian Boxing Hall of Fame as well. They come up on our table. Damien Membry was the timekeeper when you fought.
And Damien also played Slade-Allen Rudkin in Rose Against the
Yes,
Odds.
absolutely. I wonder who got in that position. Can you remember that game,
And I sparred Damien. I was sparring back then.
That's probably why you had your career ended a little early. But Barry, talking about officials, right? You've been refereed and judged by some of the greats. And I'm talking about Membry. Brian Membry was a great referee, former president of the Australian National Boxing Federation. But he refereed you as well. Famo refereed you, which was quite remarkable against what's his name, Frank Rovers. Ken Brady, one of the great boxing referees. You probably remember these guys. Ken Brady, of course. The great Gus Mysterio, who refereed many of the amateurs, right? Gus. Ray Mitchell, of course, one of the stalwarts of Australian boxing, former president of the Australian Boxing Federation, the National Boxing Federation. Of course, Billy Nails out of Sydney. Rudy Battle, one of the great American referees, little dark, I can't say black fellow, can I? That's illegal. But dark-coloured referees, Rudy Battle refereed you. Johnny Wheeler, of course, a friend of everyone. And of course, Al Baston, who refereed many fights at Festival Hall. But, ladies and gentlemen, we've got some great, as I sort of said to you earlier on, we've got absolute boxing royalty here in the room with us tonight. Barry Michael had a record of 60 professional fights. 48 professional wins, 15 by way of knockout, just 9 losses and 3 draws, which was outstanding. For title fights, as I mentioned, 24 title fights for 18 wins and just 4 losses. He fought 15 rounds on 12 occasions, winning 8 and losing 3 and 1 draw. As I mentioned, he boxed a total of 503 professional rounds in a career spanning 14 years. He was lied to, he was cheated, he was misrepresented, he was promised. All of those things happened to this kid when he was young. But he stuck it out, he was determined, he had a great father, Len, who was a beautiful person, Len, who passed away, what, just 3 years ago now?
Yeah, it's about 3 years.
And he was probably your real inspiration.
He was my rocket brother.
Yeah.
Dad, he had 20 fights in the Air Force and, taught me the basics. But one thing about my dad, a lot of people say, fathers and sons never work out in boxing. But my dad was always willing to let other guys, teach me stuff and show me stuff. But Dad was a great cut man. I probably had probably around about 300 stitches in my face, and Dad, I never got stopped on cuts once, and Dad was the man who used to stop the bleeding, and he was a great man, my father.
There's a lot of history.
Very tough man he was too. I saw him, we got out the ring one night, I just fought Joe Gibalisco, my brother, my older brother, Alan, who passed away this year as well, about January. He was married to Nolan Coates, whose father was Noel Coates, the Victorian lightweight champion. They broke it up. We got out the ring with Joe Gibalisco. We were walking through the crowd. My dad got a tap on the shoulder. He turned around and Noel Coates king hit him, my father, just after I fought a 10 round. King hit my dad straight on the chin. My dad, and this bloke was an ex-professional champion, my dad reeled back and he just went smacked him straight back. And next thing
my dad's better than your dad.
So my dad's chin was alright. So that's where I got the toughness from, for sure.
And Barry, we go back an awful long way.
We go back a long way,
We've been
Brad.
mates for a long time.
Yep.
And I guess one of the sad parts was that, and it's quite an emotional time, your wife just recently passed away as well.
Actually 5 months today. 5 months today.
And I know that's hard to.
My wife died of brain cancer 5 months today. 7th May she passed away. And to see what she went through at the hospital, she was brutal. Seriously, she wasn't dying quick enough. They forced her out. I seriously could sue either Peter McCallum or Royal Melbourne. They sent her home in a taxi once when I was in Sydney, when she was supposed to have died months before, and she fell getting out of the taxi. She never got out of bed again. She fractured her L4, L5 disc. When they sent her home in a taxi by herself, I was in Sydney. I didn't even know what was
We
happening.
moved Sydney together.
Yeah.
Later. But
It was horrendous what went on anyway.
it hasn't been been wine and roses for your career. It's been a hard career, but you know what the best part is? You've come out here and you are the person that you are today.
Thank you. I've got to say this, Sue was my third wife. Finally, everyone got it right.
Hey, just I want to explain a little bit about the ring, which is something special for you as well.
This massive ring that I'm wearing, the year before January, the IBF told me that they were bringing in this new thing that if you made 3 successful defences, which I did, I made 3 successful defences of the world title and lost it in the 4th. I lost it in the 4th after being badly smashed up in Lazard by the gangsters in Melbourne, which is another story. And my great mate Simon, who's over here with me, Simon, put your hand up. Simon was 21 at the time. He was knocked out coming off the dance floor first by the gangsters, and then they jumped me. But what was the question again? Sorry. the ring. Yeah, they flew me to Long Beach, California, because I made the 3 successful defences. It only took them 37 years, but yeah, it's a fantastic ring. It's white gold, rubies and diamonds. So yeah,
and it certainly was well earned. I might just mention Simon Burton play here because it's again how history repeats itself. Simon was actually a promoter in Melbourne, and he promoted one of the guys who was being inducted here today in the great Clifford St Martins. So Simon, welcome to Brisbane here, mate. It's great to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to what we've got. I'd like to really give a big warm welcome to the former World Super Featherweight Champion Barry Michael. He is one of the recent guys. And of course, this guy here, what we've heard today is we've just scratched the surface of what these guys were, what they did for the sport, what the sport owes these guys. The sport of professional boxing owes a debt to Grantlee Kieza. The sport of professional boxing owes a huge debt to Barry Michael as well as it does to Jeff Warren and all of these guys, to Paul Moore, to Paul, to Steve Axel, Alan Moore, Derek Moore, a lot of the guys we've all put in, we've all worked so very, very hard over the years. Very, very little pay, but we do it because it's a passion. We love this sport. We want to see what this sport goes on. But thank you for your time.
A big round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Very good.